Hey guys, Aaron here from MTGChallengers, and welcome to another Magic the Gathering deck tech. Today I'm going to be going over a new Junk Aristocrats build for Journey into Nyx Standard. So the Aristocrats was a really awesome, fun deck to play back in Innistrad Ravnica Standard. There was a white-black-red version and a white-black-green version, which is what this is. Essentially, it's a highly synergistic deck that uses cards like Cartel Aristocrat and Varolz to let you sacrifice your creatures and get various benefits from it. There's a lot of when this creature dies, you get this, or when a creature you control dies, this happens, stuff like that. It's a really fun, unique deck to play, and with the printing of Athreos, I think it might step back into the spotlight a little. So let's get right into the cards, starting with the creatures. I have 8 1-drops consisting of 4 Tormented Hero and 4 Soldier of the Pantheon. Aside from giving the deck an aggressive edge, they're great for this deck because they're just cheap, efficient guys that can be readily sacrificed at fairly little consequence. In order for this deck to work, you need things to sacrifice, so these guys fill that role well. Particularly since they're all humans, which increases the deck's overall synergy with Xathrid Necromancer, which I'll get to in a minute. And they're also both 2 powered creatures, which is great for Varolz's scavenge ability, as well as just being aggressive in general. Moving on, I have a playset of Cartel Aristocrat. Like I said before, one of the 2 pillar cards of the deck, and it's also the namesake of it. It's not that you just need creatures to sacrifice, you need cards that enable the sacrificing of creatures, and this definitely does that, and it does it well. In addition to whatever gains you'll be getting by sacrificing your creature, it will protect the Aristocrat from the color of your choice, which is great for getting around removal or making it unblockable, things like that, which ultimately makes it a highly resilient creature that will stick around, provided that you have at least one other creature on the field. The mana cost also makes it really awesome since it provides 2 devotion to Athreos. Then I have 4 copies of Voice of Resurgence. It's an awesome creature to sacrifice since you'll be getting the benefit of a potentially huge token, in addition to whatever benefit the creature you're sacrificing it to is getting, which is awesome. Beyond that, it's Voice of Resurgence. It's an amazing card, one of the best cards in Standard, and it always has been. Great against almost any form of removal since it's effectively a 2-for-1. It blocks things like Mutavault, Burning Tree Emissary, and other aggressive creatures profitably. And the second bit of his ability is awesome for disrupting control decks with their Dissolves, Sphinx's Revelations, and things like that. Already an amazing card on its own, and the synergies in the deck just make it that much better. Next up, I have 3 Xathrid Necromancer, another card that makes it beneficial to sacrifice creatures and just infuses the deck with even more synergy. Both of the 1-drops are humans, Cartel Aristocrat is a human, and the Necromancer himself is a human, so I do have quite a decent bit of humans in this deck, definitely enough to support this interaction. It's great since if you have it out, you can sacrifice your stuff to protect the Aristocrats and still have zombies left over. It's also really awesome up against board wipe effects like Supreme Verdict, since all of the triggers will go on the stack at the same time, so they want to destroy all your creatures, and you'll just get 3 or 4 zombies that will take more cards to answer, which can then be used as more sacrificing fodder. Just a great card overall in this deck. Moving on up, I have 3 Athreos God of Passage. Probably the most interesting thing about this deck, since Athreos is one of the most hyped cards in Journey into Nyx, and he's really awesome in this deck. I'm going to be sacrificing so many of my creatures, and so many of them are going to be dying, and his ability will definitely be used quite a lot. So I can sacrifice one of my cheap humans, get a zombie if I have the Necromancer out, benefit one of the Aristocrats of course, and then get to either return it to my hand, which I can then easily cast again and sacrifice again, or my opponent will have to lose a pretty significant 3 life to be rid of it for good. And even then, I have ways of getting benefits from creatures in the grave. Him being a creature also isn't out of the realm of possibility, since I am running a lot of black and white permanents. Additionally, if he himself gets into the grave, like if he's countered or something, if I have Varolz out, I can pay a measly 3 mana to scavenge and put 5 +1/+1 counters on any creature I want, which is definitely awesome. People have been searching for a home for Athreos, and I really think he shines in a deck like this. Then I have 3 Varolz the Scar-Striped. The other way, along with Cartel Aristocrat, that I get to sacrifice my creatures, make them die, and get the various benefits from them. Varolz is really good since you can block something, sack a creature to regenerate him, and then scavenge it for really cheap onto him to make him gradually a bigger threat over time. Like the Necromancer, he's good against Supreme Verdict and other board wipes since you can sacrifice a creature that would have died anyway to regenerate him, keep him alive, and then scavenge all of those creatures out of your graveyard. Varolz really works well as a second Aristocrat, as it were. If you have guys to sacrifice and or scavenge, he's sticking around for quite some time. And finally, at the top of my curve, I have a playset of Reaper of the Wilds. Awesome for this deck for several reasons. Obviously, the Scry 1 ability is going to come into play quite a bit since so many creatures are dying all the time, and it's even better since it also triggers for my opponent's creatures as well. It's just yet another cool benefit that can come from sacrificing my creatures depending on what's already out there. Beyond that, it can be a great late game win condition, very sizable creature that's surprisingly hard to remove. It's black, so it dodges Doomblade, multicolored, so it dodges Ultimate Price. It's 4 mana as opposed to 3, so Abrupt Decay doesn't kill it, 5 toughness gets around Mizzium Mortars, and 4 power keeps it out of range of Celestia Charm. So there's just a ton of removal that the Reaper dodges, which can make it a win condition. And if they do just have like a Hero's Downfall or something, you can still give it hexproof. All in all, it's the perfect top of the curve for this deck, and I've been really impressed with it. So that's it for the creature base. Moving on to the other spells. I have 3 Thoughtseize. It's not really synergistic with the deck, it's just a really amazing spell to have in any black deck, period. It disrupts, it gives you information, it deals with just about anything, like Detention Sphere, Banishing Light, Thassa, Athreos, just things that the deck would otherwise have real problems with game 1. Only 3 as opposed to 4, since this is a 3-color deck, so I'm already going to be losing some life to Shocklands and stuff like that, so I didn't want to run the full 4. Like I said, there's no real synergies here, Thoughtseize is just Thoughtseize. Then I have 1 Ultimate Price, just a nice 1-of removal spell that does kill a decent bit of stuff. The bias can be really bad in this format, so a 1-of is just fine. Specifically, it will kill Desecration Demon, which can be a huge issue for this deck, so that makes it pretty solid overall. Moving on, I have 2 copies of Orzhov Charm. This charm really hasn't seen too much play, but it's really awesome in this particular deck. The first mode is the least used, but it does come into play every now and then if you have one of the Aristocrats out with nothing to protect it, nothing to sacrifice, and they play Supreme Verdict or some other removal spell, I can Orzhov Charm in response and get it back to my hand. The Destroy ability is great for some more removal that's unbiased. I'll just lose more and more life depending on how big the thing is, which is usually worth it. And the last ability is really where the charm shines, since it will let me reanimate my cheap humans since they're 1-drops, which I can then sacrifice again to protect the Aristocrats and get all the various benefits from them. And the final spell I have is Abrupt Decay. I have 2 of it. Awesome removal spell, gets rid of permanents, which is important for the deck, blows up Detention Spheres, Banishing Lights, Underworld Connections, Domri Raids, and it gets all the threatening 3-drops like Loxodon Smiter, Boros Reckoner, and Bramaz. It's just a cheap and awesome removal spell that's fairly circumstantial due to the mana cost, so that's why there are only 2 of them in the main deck. It's still definitely quite solid. So that's it for the spells. Moving on to the mana base. It's pretty traditional as far as 3-color decks go, the full 12 Shocklands, so 4 Godless Shrine, 4 Overgrown Tomb, and 4 Temple Garden. Then I have 8 Scrylands, consisting of 3 Temple of Silence, 3 Temple of Malady, and 2 Temple of Plenty. It's awesome that the green and black Scryland is available now, it makes the mana base that much more solid. And then I have 2 basic swamps and 1 basic plains for a total of 23 lands. So that's it for the main board, let's move on to the sideboard. First off, I have 3 Sin Collector. Really great sideboard card for this deck. It's highly disruptive, gives you information, and gets rid of problematic instants and sorceries like Dissolve, Supreme Verdict, Sphinx's Revelation, and spot removal like Hero's Downfall. Beyond that, it's also a human, which makes it a decent sacrifice target after you've gotten the benefit off of it. Then I have 3 copies of Duress. Basically a replacement for Thoughtseize when the ability to take a creature just isn't relevant. Up against things like Control that doesn't run any creatures, or things like Burn, which is just burn spells, Duress is actually better than Thoughtseize because it takes the stuff and doesn't lose you 2 life in the process. Next I have 3 1-ofs, 1 Doomblade, 1 Ultimate Price, and 1 more Abrupt Decay. This is just personal preference. I like to have 1-ofs of conditional removal spells on the side, just to make it more flexible overall and to answer more stuff. These cards will come in or remain in the side depending on the matchup. Not much to say about these other than that. Then I have 2 copies of Deicide, awesome enchantment removal to get rid of Detention Spheres and Underworld Connections in mono black. It also, of course, deals handily with any of the gods, particularly Athreos and Athreos, since they're the ones that everyone is playing and trying out right now. Golgari Charm is an awesome all-around sideboard card, and it as a 2-of is really solid. Again, it blows up enchantments like Detention Sphere, protects against board wipes like Supreme Verdict, and the -1/-1 is really good at killing any kind of aggressive starts. It will kill some of my creatures too, but if you've been paying attention, my creatures dying is usually beneficial to me. And finally, I have 2 Whip of Erebos in the side, up against the aggressive decks with the lifelink, and the reanimation ability can be really good to whip things back like the Reapers of the Wilds, to hit for more damage and possibly kill them. So that's it for this deck tech. Thank you all very much for watching. To see these decks in action, click the annotation at the end of this video to see the gameplays. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the Facebook page, and consider making a donation to support the continuation of this project. Thanks for visiting, and if you like what you see, subscribe for more Magic the Gathering content.